Hello, my name's Philip Evans. I'm an operations manager working for RM Education. I've created this video tutorial aimed at educational establishments to show you Teams and some of the other great things Office 365 has to offer. I'll be showing you some of the things that will reduce your workload and make communication and collaboration easier, as well as some neat classroom activities that may inspire teaching and learning. You could find plenty of how-to videos on Microsoft for Educators. They're very professional, if not a little bit American. I'm a big Teams advocate, and I know working in a school makes it hard to keep up with the latest offerings that Microsoft have produced. Please do bear in mind that Microsoft are constantly improving and updating their Office 365 suite. So if you're watching this video in 6 months' time, you might find some of the screens slightly different, though I can't imagine the principles will change that much. Now, there's too much in Office 365 to cover in one short session, but I will focus on Microsoft Teams, Planner, OneNote, the snipping tool, Forms, and finally Sway. Clearly, if you want to get more information on the detail of these apps, once you've seen my intro, there's plenty of videos on the Microsoft for Educators website. It will be just me talking to the microphone, so it won't be very interactive, but if you do have any questions after watching the video, please reach out to your RM account manager. Okay, so I'll start with the best one, Teams. Think of it as your shared server drive in the cloud. It's accessible anywhere, improves communication, collaboration, and it's convenient because it can be accessible on any browser or any device, including Android and iOS. Right, let me just share my screen. Okay, so this is what we'll be covering today. So launching Teams. So Teams, as I say, can be accessed via a browser or the actual Teams app. I'll be using a browser Edge in today's session because I'm using my Teams app to record this session. So Teams. So to access any Office application, click on the waffle top left-hand corner of office.com, and you'll get your list of list of Office apps. Teams being along the side here. That's just a selection. You can click on all apps, and you can get plenty more that Microsoft have developed. So launching Teams, simply click onto there. So I've currently got that open at the moment. So as default, your Teams will be pretty blank and boring. And what I've done here is created a typical setup for a primary school. And we would recommend doing it in this kind of structure. But obviously, if you're a secondary school, you may want it slightly different. So what we've created is a team for teaching and learning, a staff room for all staff, school office for admin, an area for SLT, and an optional for governors, SEND, and safeguarding. So we have teams and channels within there. So teams, you create a new team, and we click on the three dots here, and you'll be able to manage the team and decide who needs to be a member of that team. So at the moment, we can see the people here in our test environment, and they're the owners, and they can then add more people to be members or guests of that team. So very simple, click on add a member, search within your tenancy, select the people, very quick and easy. You can elevate them to be owners if you want to do that as an owner. You've obviously got things like information and settings further within there, but that's the basics, and that will get you your first team set up. Now, for data security, you won't actually see a team unless you're a member of it. So all of these teams I'm a member and owner of, but if I was removed from those teams, then I won't get to see them. So effectively, if you're not in the team, you won't see the data or any chat within there. So by default, all teams get a general channel that's posted below the team, and within there you have posts and files. So the posts, think about that as being like a WhatsApp chat facility. It's supposed to be fairly low key. It's not supposed to be super professional. It's supposed to be ad hoc, a bit more instant message style. So not necessarily the super professional expectations, but it's internal. It is within that team. But it is a really good communication tool to pass messages on to members of that team, highlighting new documents that you've added or any other changes that you've made. So to start a new conversation, you simply click on the box at the bottom, start typing. If you type the word at, the letter at, before a person's name within that team, it will highlight them in the activity window up here. That little bell there will increase the number by the number of mentions that you've got within the team that you're in, teams that you're in. So you can press at, and if I type teaching and learning, it will then also highlight the message you're about to send out to anybody who's in that group. Um, so um, so that's pretty straightforward. If you don't type anybody's name, it will just make that channel go bold to say that something new has appeared, but not necessarily for your attention. It's just that something new has appeared in there. With the conversations, it can be just a quick one-liner like I've just entered here. So that's a link to a website and some information. You can also, if you click on this little A, add a subject to it to make it stand out. And also from new conversation, you can also select it as an announcement. And I'll show you an example of announcement here. I've launched Forest School and also added a sticker that can be added through the emojis or the GIFs or the stickers option down the bottom here. You can also do a meet now, which is a quick meeting setup, virtual conference call from within that team, and then all members of that team will get an alert to say that a meeting has started and they're welcome to join it. And again, it's only people within that team that will get that message. So that's the conversation view, pretty straightforward. I have got examples of schools where they have stopped the staff briefing and use everything through Teams, through the messaging, and through a staff notebook that I'll be coming up to shortly. So the other area is files, and the best way to describe files would be in the staff general that we've created here. So we've created a policies and procedures channel within the staff room, and within there we've got files and got folders and files within there. So simple act of clicking on new, you can create a new document straight from Teams, or you can simply drag and drop or press the upload button to navigate to your T drive or your own desktop if you've got files there. So that's a single point of truth. You're not going to be emailing around, can you update this file? Can you pass it back to me when you've done your bit? And then you're having to merge all the changes together. And those of you that's used SharePoint in the past, where you have to check them out and then check them back in so that other people can edit them, you don't have to do that with Teams. So as long as you're using the cloud version of the files, you can launch the document and multiple users can access it at the same time, which is really good for collaboration. So you can have 2 or 3, 4 or 5, as many people as you like, all working on the same document. Can be a bit disconstrued, and when you've got, you can see a little initial moving around when other people are working on the document, but it is good for collaboration and you can work on those documents all together. So I can show you on here. So I'm launching this particular Word document, and any people can comment on it or they can add their own structure to that. What's also good about the files and the post section is once you've created a file and you want to draw attention to it, you can copy the link to that file and go back to posts and highlight to that team that you've created it. So in this case, at staff room, and we're going to say, please, can you and that's sent to everybody. So anybody who's in that team will get an activity bell to say that they've been mentioned and to do something. And then similar to kind of Facebook, you've got this like emoji type thing at the top here. So you can actually stipulate to say, can you press the like button when you've read and understand the policy? So that's great for auditing purposes. So you don't need to have signatures on staff room walls where you've got you keeping children safe in education, etc. All signed out. You can quickly see that in this case I've added myself as liking this particular policy or document. So you can also chat directly with your colleagues. So along here, you've got the list of people in your team. You can find them directly and start chatting to them on an instant message basis. You can share files. You can upload Word documents, etc., or images, etc. You can also do video and call conferencing with that individual, which is great if they're working from home. You can still then keep in touch and keep in contact. And that's the same for your teams as well. So if you was to create a team, and you can also in there create a call conference groups that you're all talking together at the same time. And you can mute various individuals if they're making too much noise, and you can do a chat within that meeting. So it's very good at communicating and collaborating in that space. So going back to the teaching and learning area, so in this example, we've got the year groups broken down. So potentially you would have lesson plans, any kind of information that's pertinent just for that year group. You notice it's got two hidden channels. It does that to try and make your view a bit more straightforward. You just click on that and you can see the other two year groups from there. And the same goes for teams. If there's a team that you want to be a member of but don't really want it in your list, you can just hide it from view just by clicking on that, and then you can view it at the bottom through hidden teams. So yeah, so you've got your chat. You can chat with multiple people. It doesn't have to be just the individuals or the people within the team. So you can organize a quick kind of conflag, a quick meeting, as it were, and away you go. There is an assignments section. I will touch on that briefly at the end, but assignments is quite a powerful way of getting the children involved. So all of this that I'm talking to you at the moment is really geared towards your staff, getting them working together and collaborating. But going forward, there's no reason why you can't get your students involved as well. And I'll briefly show you how the assignments work at the end of this tutorial. Calendar section, so that links into your Outlook calendar. And again, shows you any meetings, but you also got the option to meet now, organize a very off-the-cuff meeting with people straight away. Or if you've got a Teams meeting in the calendar, you just launch it from there, and that'll launch your call conference. This is being recorded, so you can also record your call conferences. So if you've got a meeting and a few people can't attend it, they can then listen to it afterwards. Quite straightforward. As soon as you've finished recording, it saves it into Microsoft Stream, which is a bit like an internal YouTube that your staff can access. Finally, in this section, you've got your files. That's all the files that's within Microsoft Teams in like a list view, but also a link to your OneDrive. So your OneDrive is your personal storage area. You've got 1 terabyte, which is 1,000 gigabytes worth of data, so plenty much more there than your server that you would have your local N drive, for example. So you can move that data in chunks to the OneDrive and then access that from home through the Teams browser, or indeed, if you're in just the Microsoft window, you can go straight to OneDrive from there. But I think Microsoft are trying to make Teams your single hub, your single point of information, so they've kept files within there for you. Just a quick gotcha on files. I know a lot of schools do like Publisher. So Publisher files aren't really supported in Teams as such. So launching them from clicking them here will not work through Teams. Partly because Microsoft are trying to phase Publisher out and wean you out of using that application. Really, you should be looking at PowerPoint and the advancements in Word now to move away from Publisher, but I know a lot of you prefer that. So you have a couple of options in that front. You can save a Publisher file as an image and then import that into Word or PowerPoint, which keeps all the formatting, the layout, but that does mean you can't then edit it afterwards. You can upload Publisher files into your OneDrive or into Teams, but what you'll need to do in that case is open them up via SharePoint. So in this case, if you imagine that was a Publisher file, click on the 3 dots and then open in SharePoint, and then you can then open it through your application that you've got on your desktop. Okay. The other thing is around data. So what we wouldn't be recommending to you is just, oh great, I've got all my teams set up, I'll go to my T drive now and I'll drag everything and I'll lob it all into Teams. There is a limit of 10 files that you can upload in any one go. You can do bulk uploads bigger than that, but what you can find is if your browser crashes or if you have a problem with your internet bandwidth, it might go, oops, there was a problem, and you won't know which files have gone across and which ones haven't. So if you are to do it, I would recommend tidying up your T drive first, get rid of all the 15-year-old documents you don't actually need to store into the cloud anymore. And also do it in small chunks if you can. Maybe just put the stuff that you know is going to be used frequently and leave the old archived stuff on the server. And if you do want to do big uploads, there is a tool that we have, a Microsoft cloud migration tool. Now there is a charge to use that for the license for it, but it does assure that you're going to get the same data on the cloud that you had in your server space. So Teams, that's the bulk of what I'm showing you on Teams in terms of what it can do. Got the collaboration aspect, working together, sharing your data, working on those documents, the voice and video conference calls, which is great if you're maybe as part of a MAT and want to talk to each other across site, but also with the current coronavirus, when you're working from home, maybe you could do that. I next want to show you Planner, which is a really nice feature for projects and task management. You can access Planner again from the waffle and accessing it through here, or in this case, what I've done is added it as a link at the top of your Teams. So in this case, we've got the school improvement plan that we've created as a test for you. And what you have is buckets across the top here, and you can add as many buckets as you like. I wouldn't recommend too many because then you'd be scrolling across quite a bit. You add a task just simply by clicking on that, give it a title. You can decide what bucket it goes in at that point or drag and drop it afterwards, whether it's started, in progress, or not started, what the urgency is, start date, and when it's due, and any kind of notes you want to describe the task that you've got at the top here. You can add checklists that you tick off as you go along, and you can add as many as you like as those. You can add attachments, any comments, and the best of all is you can assign that task to a member of your team. So you select the name, that sends them an email to say you've been assigned a task, and hope that they'd understand what to do with that and expect them to complete it once the job has been done. You can also add these little labels that go next to them. You can describe, I mean, they've just got the colors at the side here, but you can rename those for each plan to indicate different ways of organizing your tasks. And as I say, you can just drag and drop any of these into the various buckets. So it's quite a nice, simple, it's not like MS Project, which is about £350 worth of wieldy project management software. It's nice and simple. Anybody can use it. And those in the SLT can look at the charts to see how those tasks are getting on, or if there's any particular person that's not doing their tasks properly, so they can be instructed to get on with them. But it is a really nice and simple way of managing tasks. And you could do this individually for your own tasks. If you've got a list of 30 jobs and you're not sure which one to do first, you can assign them into the right buckets and tick them off as you go along. There is a tasks selection in Office as well as this one, but this is more for projects rather than your individual to-do list, but there's no reason why you can't use it for that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to be showing you is OneNote, which you may or may not have come across before. So OneNote is your, as you'd imagine, a notebook solution. A place for all of your notes is what it's described as the headline here. So what's the difference between that and Word, for example? The biggest difference is it is more like a blank canvas, and you can put information anywhere on the page, whereas Word is a bit more constrained in terms of how the formatting, the layout. You stick a picture in the middle of it and it throws all your text in around it, and it's quite restrictive. So with OneNote you can type all your notes, you can write them if you've got a stylus and a touch screen, for example, if it's on a tablet. And if I show you here, so we can do tick boxes, we can type my notes anywhere on the screen, can copy and paste images. My mouse drawing is very good, but you can do that. You can also dictate to it and have it save the audio file on there for you. You can also use it as a calculator. It doesn't work in the web version, so this is the actual app itself, the downloadable app. But if I was to do any kind of calculation, do equals, it automatically calculates it for me. So I've used that for expenses, for travel, mileage claims, etc. And so it's just a nice, easy way of keeping on track of those receipts. So snipping tool, whilst I'm on that topic, is a part of Windows 10 and Windows 8.1, I believe, and you can launch it from the start menu just by typing snipping tool. It might say snip and sketch. That is the later version that's been released out there. It's basically the same thing Microsoft have developed. Click on new, and you highlight the area that you want to snip. And that's that area that I want to. You can, in theory, draw on it if you want to highlight something that you want your audience to know about, or you've done that. You can click on copy, and that will then save it to your clipboard, and then you can go back to your OneNote and paste it into your. The other thing with snipping tool is a delay feature, which is quite handy if you're trying to snip a menu that disappears as soon as you click off it. You can do 2-second delay, click on new, and then select the menu, and then got a snip of that. And again, that's automatically saved it to clipboard. You can use the mode option to do a free form shape, but I find the rectangular snip is the easiest way, and it saves you having to screenshot your whole screen like you would do if you press the print screen button on your computer keyboard. So that is really handy if you're maybe doing a webinar in terms of doing some web training, and you want to try and grab the slides as you go. You can snip those, stick them into your OneNote, and paste them in as you go along. So the OneNotes, you've got your tabs across the top, and then your pages below. So it's very simple. If you want a new page, add a new page, give it a title, and that's now appeared on here. And because that's synchronized into the cloud as you go in, it means you can then access those files when you get back home, after you've been at school, after you've come back from the conference. As long as you've got an internet connection, it will synchronize that. And if you haven't got one and you've got the app, it will synchronize it next time you do get an internet connection. So OneNote is a really good note-taking application that's pretty much flexible in terms of what you can do with it, and I use it quite extensively for my training. So any training that I do, I've got the links to them all, and then I've got the notes on there and screenshots, etc. So that's really handy. So going back to our Teams and into Staff Notebook, that is basically just a OneNote that we've added, and we did that by clicking on the plus, and you'll get then the Office ones at the top. These ones I'd recommend playing with first. You've got these then third-party ones that I do some research on. Try them, but just be aware that some of them do require you to share your data with the third party, so just be aware of that. But there might be some really cool widgets, as they're called, that that might really solve a lot of problems in your establishment. So I selected OneNote, asked me is it an existing OneNote or a new one. I selected new, called it School Improvement, School Staff Notebook, sorry, and it's now created this notebook for me. I select on here, and I've got then collaboration space, got content library, and more notebooks within here. So what can you use this for? For example, I think minutes for a meeting. So you're having a staff briefing and get one person to dictate or write the headlines and the actions, and that way anybody that didn't attend that school briefing will then be able to see what happened in that meeting. So it's really handy because, again, it's saving as it's going along. You're not having to remember to upload it or having to type it afterwards whilst you've scribbled away in a traditional format. There is an option called One Notebook class notebook. Again, it's a very similar method to OneNote. The beauty of that one is that it will potentially give you the option to assign homework and share out study packs, etc., to your classes. So very similar to Google Classroom if you've been introduced to that. Obviously, Microsoft have seen that Google Classroom are taking the lead on that front and are trying to make their way to meet their customers' needs in a similar way. I won't go into too much detail on Class Notebook because that's quite an extensive session, and I recommend if you are interested in that, have a look at the Microsoft for Educators website. There's good examples of how to use that in the classroom. But imagine it is OneNote, as you've just been shown, but where you can actually see your students and what they've typed as they're typing it, and also you can have collaboration areas. So it's a OneNote where groups of students can work together to create a document or create some presentations within the notebook. Okay, so if I go back to my teams, so that was the school notebook within that particular team. So that's teams using staff notebook, the planner. The next thing I want to show you is forms. So this is quite a really funky feature that will resolve quite a lot of issues within schools, certainly surveys to parents, staff surveys if you want to get the mood of the nation or to get some ideas from the staff. It might be, we're looking to change the colour of the classrooms, what colours do you think we should use, and you can get an instant vote from that. So how easy is it to set a form? And the answer is very easy. So very similar to SurveyMonkey. Most of you will have come across that. The difference between this and SurveyMonkey is it's totally free. You're not paying extra to get the results, and you can do it all yourself. You don't need one person to have one license, etc. So it's all included in your Office 365. So in order to, this one's been pre-populated, but I just need to add a new question at the bottom. You've got a choice, a text, rating, a date. There's some more in here in terms of ranking something out of 10, and also ranking in order a list of things. So for example here, what do you like about Teams? You can select that, and if you want to add more options, so, and that's as simple as that. If you want to bin one afterwards, you can do. You can use the arrows to move it up and down. You can select multiple answers if you want more than one choice. And on the text options, you've also got long answer, which I'd recommend selecting because if you do short answer and they run out of characters, that would be quite frustrating for them. Whereas long answer lets them type in as much as they want. Required if you want it to be a mandatory question to avoid. If you select that, they won't be able to submit the survey unless they have put in an answer, but they might just put space or dot in that, and that would still let them send it. You can do themes. You've got some pre-populated, or you can import your own images, and you can share it out obviously once you've created your survey. So in the settings here, you've got the choice of anyone with a link can respond. So that's what you'd want if it's going to parents or anybody outside of the school. If you just want it within your classroom or your staff, you'd select that. And then there's a choice of being anonymous or if you want to know the name. If you do select that option, they do need an Office 365 and it does need to be your tenancy, otherwise it won't let them see the survey. And the other beauty of that one is you can stop pupils or kids or whatever doing lots of surveys over and over. You can limit when it's the survey can be filled in from and to. You can customize your own kind of thank you message after the event, and also get it to send an email as they fill in the survey. But to be fair, I think it's easier if you're the owner of that form. You just click on responses, press refresh every now and again, and you'll see them going in as you go along. So in this example, we've only got 2 responses, but already Forms has created a nice bit of graph information about what people have said and what you've got there. And then there's an open in Excel. If you're a data person like me, you can then export that to Excel and do more fancy pivot tables and graphs and so forth with the results. So that's how that works. If you click on preview, you'll then see how it would look for the person filling it in. But just bear in mind that if you do fill it in the preview, it will count that survey as part of your results. Once you've got a nice survey that you want to use and you want to reuse, you can reuse it again. You can select on the share and create a link to duplicate that particular survey. That gives it a new title and refreshes all the responses as well. So that's the forms. The other element of forms is quizzes, which is really good in the classroom. If you wanted to set your students some quiz, so you could do this on the board and just take votes as to who's going to give the right answers, or you could individually give them the quiz to complete via a hyperlink through the share option here. Click on share and send them that hyperlink, and that would give them the link to the quiz. So what I'm going to do is click on preview here and just go through some of the answers. Now, again, a lot of things like forms, but also OneNote. You've also got this immersive reader that will help with any SEND or visually impaired students, that will read the questions out for them and also lay it out in a nicer big bold format as well. So that's also a feature of Office 365. So I'm going to select some answers at random here and see what happens. So I've submitted that, glow the results, and I can now see how many I got right. So in this case, I didn't do very well. I've only got 13%, so I got most of the answers wrong by the looks of things. But it shows me straight away those questions I got wrong and which ones I got right. Go back as a teacher and have a look at the responses. I can now see how well the class have done. So in this case, all 4 of my students have got the answer right, so I know they've fully understood that particular section. I can also review those answers individually and grade them accordingly. So it could be auto-graded, that you give it 1 point for every right answer. If the question was a text-based answer, you'd have to manually mark that to decide whether they've answered correctly in terms of what they've written. But again, if this was within the tenancy, you'd actually see the pupil names down here as well, so you'd know exactly who's filled in the survey. Quiz. Go back to forms. I'll show you another quiz example. So this could be on the back of a trip to Blenheim Palace, and you can see how well they've understood, or you could get them to do some research in terms of getting that feedback, and that's quite nice. So this will work, as I say, on any browser-based device. So if you've got iPads, if you've got Chromebooks, all of these would work on that system, or just your ICT suite in a normal browser. So that's forms. It's again really powerful, really simple to use, and I think out of all of the things I'm going to show you today, apart from Teams, it's probably the one you'll probably be really wanting to use that in your classrooms. Now, again, we can go to Teams, and we can add a form if you want to onto that link if you want to, or you could just go to the general posts area and say, I've posted a new survey, and post the link to the form that you want the people in your team to do. Okay, so the final thing I'll touch on is Sway. Sway is a presentation solution. We've all heard the phrase death by PowerPoint, and kids do spend more time trying to do things like get the text to whiz from the left and spin around than they do the actual content of the thing they're trying to present. So what Sway is trying to do is trying to make the focus on the content as opposed to the magic, the wizardry. So you would create these cards, as it were. There can be headings, text, an image, or a stack of images that would kind of layer on top of each other. And so you are fairly limited in terms of what you can do. But when we click on play, you can see this is the kind of results. So I'm just refreshing this now. So just time me out a little bit whilst I was talking. So you can quickly see this looks a lot more like a professional website, and yet I haven't done anything funky to actually create that other than I press play. This particular sway is a scroll down one, so you're not just clicking next on slides, but you can have it slide across ways if you prefer. I'll show you that. Click on edit, and you go to design over the left hand side, and click on styles, and you can decide whether you want it to be horizontal slides like a traditional PowerPoint slide if you want to, and you can select different kind of layouts and formats, or you can press the remix button, and the kids quite like that, where you can just press remix and see what it lands. All you do is press play and see if you're happy with it. And this one again is a scroll down presentation, but again you could do the vertical one if you prefer. So yeah, again, what is Sway? It is a way of children presenting what they've learned in a nice format. In terms of, it's very simple. You can drag and drop those cards so that the format and the layout is in the order that you want it to be in. You can also, if I go back to the Sway page, is you can just reuse templates that other people have already kind of done. So this, I'll be honest with you, that's what I did. I used the tomato blog and then edited the contents to be my difference between tomatoes being a fruit and not putting them in fruit salad. But you've got newsletters that are pre-populated. There's a photo collage. So you start with that and then you build up as you wish. And there's some inspired lessons as well. So there's also some pre-defined lesson plans that you've got there that the community have created as well, that you could use as just a nicer way of presenting information and facts on the board, as opposed to the boring PowerPoint solution that you traditionally have got. So that's your Sway. And again, going back to Teams, there's no reason why you can't put a Sway into Teams. So again, through a link, have a look at this presentation I've done. What do you think? You can put it in your individual classroom areas, so forth. So that's your Sway, and you can put it like. So I did say at the end I would mention about assignments through the assignments section. So what you have to do before you start with your assignments is create a new team that's a class. So I create a new team, create team here, and we've got these choices here. So is it a staff team? Is it for like a after school club or study group? Or is it for a class? And this is the one that's a fairly new feature if you have come across Teams before. I'm not going to click on classes in this example because it does take a little while for it to create that team and replicate. So I created one earlier in Blue Peter fashion. So this is Key Stage 2 that I've created. I've added my pupils into the membership of that team through the wizard that it did, and I can always manage that team and remove or add the staff members as we go along. So what can I do here? So we have a class notebook. I mentioned class notebook earlier, and again recommend you look into that in detail. But we've also got assignments as a new feature that's as part of a class team. So what I've done here is assigned them doing that quiz. So if I click on here, easier to show you how I assign that. So I created a new quiz. I'm going to go to edit assignment just to show you how easy it was to set that up. So I gave it a title. You can give it a category, some instructions, linked it to the form that I created before, gave them the amount of points that are available for it, when it's due to be handed in, and any other kind of information on that assignment. So if I click on student view, when that loads up, you'll then be able to see that as a student, it's popped up in their activity. Up here, it will say, you've got a new assignment that's due, and please can you complete this quiz. So it's really straightforward. You can then mark it. You can provide feedback, so the students have got that two-way um, appreciation of whether they've understood it, and you can also obviously grade it, and you'll see grades within. Um, so yeah, so in this case, none of my students have completed the homework, but you would quickly, because it's automatically marked, show them how many have actually completed the quiz and also what points they've got. So assignments, again, it's a newish feature, but it's one that I think is pretty powerful and can be used in the classroom. I've got this quiz that I've done as a draft, and again, it's the same principle. You can also do documents or links to external resources that you want them to do some research on before they do the quiz, for example. So, or you could just say, I want you in your notebook to actually do an essay on 500 words on the particular topic that you've learnt there. So that pretty much wraps up my overview of some of the nice features that Office 365 has to offer. Teams, I spent most of the time talking about that for obvious reasons, because I think that is the best tool for accessing your data anywhere, for communicating within your team, within your classroom, working together with the ability that you can work on documents at the same time. And it's convenient. It works on any application. You don't need necessarily a Windows device to use it. It can be a Mac or an iPad. So it is very convenient, and certainly with the ability to work from home, you can use the call conferences and web conferences. It effectively is Skype. Skype for business is being dropped by Microsoft in the next 12 months, and Teams will be the preferred solution. And having used both, Teams call conferencing is much more stable, and it works a lot better than Skype ever did. So hopefully you found this session informative. I'm going to wrap it up now, and I do thank you for taking your time to listen, and hopefully you found that useful. Thank you.